On today's episode of the Booth Review Podcast, I'm Logan Paulsen, but that's not London Fletcher. It's Scott Jackson. What we got today, Scott?
We got Tell the Truth Tuesday, Logan.
And it's Tell the Truth Tuesday. Lots of stuff to fix. We got problems, but we also got solutions. And then we got London coming back in the house to explain how to beat Seattle. It all starts right now. Welcome to the Booth Review Podcast. I'm Logan Paulsen, here with not London Fletcher, not Bram Weinstein, but Scott Jackson, who is our post-game analyst, post-game host with Fred Smoot after the game. Great insight, does the halftime update as well. Scott, how you doing?
Very good, Logan. Yeah. Apparently, the guys just couldn't bear to come back from Kansas City. That barbecue must be really good.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Fletcher's flight got delayed. Bram had a flight issue as well. So thanks for stepping in. Really appreciate it. And as always, we're brought to you by Microsoft Surface Copilot Plus PC, and we are in the Big Bear AI Command Center studio, or at least I am, because everybody else is out and about on flights. You're down in Richmond someplace doing your thing. Appreciate you filling in last minute. So thanks, man.
Yeah, well, actually, Virginia Beach, but hey, we
that's
are.
Right. Sorry, that's my bad.
Yeah. No worries, man. Well, look, it was a good start, right? Really good first half from the Commanders defensively, especially, and just weren't able to stay hot. I want to get your thoughts on it as you saw it from down there on the sideline. Like, what was the difference and why they couldn't kind of keep that momentum going?
Yeah, and that's a big part of our Tell the Truth Tuesday segment, right? Is like they were hot in the beginning, they didn't stay hot. And I think that's a really good question, Scott, because I think they came out with just great energy and they executed in a way that is required to win football games, I think, right? Like you see defensively a drive, a hustle, a physicality, a tackling that we haven't seen for a couple of weeks. So it was great to see that. You saw them turn the football over, and versus a team like Kansas City, you're going to need to find those edges wherever you can. But I think the other thing is offensively, you saw a really well-called game plan by Cliff. You saw, some zone read. You saw some different variations of zone read. You saw some gap scheme runs. You saw some quick games, some screens, some things that kept them off balance. And obviously, they weren't able to capitalize on the turnovers the same way. But I think you just saw a very clean brand of football in the first half. And again, like you look at the penalties in the first half, very low number. Obviously, that increases in the second half. There's some mistakes. The muff kickoff is one that comes to mind, right? The third down or lack of third down conversions offensively in the second half, and the ability to get off the field on third down. I know those things are like high-level metrics, but I do think they kind of show they give a good diagnosis for the ailment of hot to not in the second half of that football game.
Well, as we continue with the Tell the Truth Tuesday part of it, I mean, again, you couldn't have printed out a better start against Patrick Mahomes to get him to turn it over twice. But then, of course, comes the second half. You see it a million times as you watch this guy. He is the best backyard football player, I swear, that we've ever seen. What was kind of the key to getting off to the fast start, and why could they not maintain that in terms of slowing down Mahomes?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've watched enough football, Scott. Like you kind of get it, and like I've watched enough football and played enough football games. It's like sometimes when you're playing, I think it's important to acknowledge that like right now the Chiefs are a more complete football team than compared to the Washington Commanders. They're a good football team, and so when you're playing a team like that and you're kind of punching above your weight class, like you have to take advantage of those opportunities. So like I heard you on the post game with Fred Smoot talking about how like you get these 2 turnovers, but you don't turn them into points. And think about like the complexion of this game versus a better football team. If it's 14-7 or 21-7 or 17-7, the pressure on the Chiefs is so different. And I think like one of the things about the Chiefs like that I think is underrated is they've been good for so long that they can win any style of football game. They're confident they can win any style of football game. So it could be going poorly and they figure out how to rally. They could be up, they could be even, and they just are very confident in themselves and the team and their abilities to win the game. And so I think like with Mahomes, you saw kind of, again, he got hurt, right? The Commanders defense did a great job turning the football over and kind of rocked him a little bit, but he's been there before. He's been rocked before. He knows how to kind of get his feet, get back in the rhythm of the football game. He's confident in Andy Reid. He's confident in his team. And that's the problem when you play good quarterbacks. Like I think back to when like I would play or my teams would play like Tom Brady or Peyton Manning. Like you could get them right, for a quarter, for a half, for 3 quarters. But at some point, you knew they were going to figure it out and absolutely lay it on you. And I think Patrick Mahomes brings a lot of that same energy. And it's one of the reasons why he's in the conversation for one of the best quarterbacks of all time.
Yeah, I mean, he really was. I was looking at these numbers from last night. So he starts the game, 5 and 9, 37 yards with the 2 picks. Then the rest of the game, he's 20 of 25, 262, 3 touchdowns, and obviously no more interceptions. And then if you go to the, when he's in Commander's territory, 1 of 5, minus 1 yard, the 2 picks, to 10 for 12, 150 to 3 TDs. I mean, it's like he understands the moment, like you said. And, the one thing everybody's been talking about this year with Kansas City, okay, they can play more explosively now. But, really last night, they were kind of more the Chiefs we saw from a few years ago. They'll take what the defense gave them, right? And they got some chunk plays, but not like the big plays that maybe you've seen some of them, hit earlier this year as they've been kind of opening their offense a little bit more.
Well, it's funny, like when I was getting ready for the game, like I remember watching film thinking like they have this reputation this year of being more explosive, and they are more explosive. I'm not trying to take that away from them, but they are very comfortable playing kind of this horizontal brand of football with the RPO, the quick game, the screens, and kind of biding their time. And one of the things when you look at the film, or at least in the prep leading up, is like when they find their explosive opportunities, it's Patrick Mahomes extending the play, right? He's getting out of the pocket. Yeah. He's making a subtle movement in the pocket. He's making an off angle, off platform throw to a guy that's wide open in the middle of the field after the defense is covered for 3.5 or 4 seconds. And I think like that's what this is, right? It feels more explosive, but like it's because of his ability to create in the back end and find guys that are open after the coverage has been stretched and in some cases been broken. And again, like you can talk about, I think, the defense's culpability in that in terms of how consistent or not consistent they were with their rush angles, their rush path, the continuity of their rush. But again, you got to give him a lot of credit because that is the thing that drives the explosive element of their offense, at least this year, right? It's not like they have Tyreek Hill. It's like he's the guy that says, I'm going to sit back here, cook, spin this thing up, and make some plays down the football field. And in some places, it's not even down the football field. It's just a wide open Travis Kelce in the flat on a play action pass where in man coverage they've dropped him because the down has just gone on for so long.
Yeah, I don't think you would ever flip on the tape. You coach young kids. Would you ever turn on the tape and say to your quarterback, hey, just do what Patrick Mahomes is doing?
Yeah. I probably wouldn't ever say that to them. You want them to be creative and play the game, but he just does things that are so unique. And I think, he's like he's like the archetype of the modern quarterback, right? You want a guy who can move around. You want a guy who's got kind of flexible fundamentals when it comes to throwing the football because it gives you these kind of awesome plays off schedule. And he just has that. And I feel like, watching him this year, he's been a little bit more off schedule than normal, but the team has needed that. And like you said, like he does such a great job of finding or understanding the moment and like what the team needs. Like, does he need to scramble? Does he need to push the football down the field? Does he need to extend and find these opportunities? And he just seems to consistently make the right decision, which is incredibly frustrating to play a guy like that who's not going to get himself out necessarily.
It is the Booth Review podcast. Everybody's out, so I'm Scott Jackson in here with Logan Paulsen this week as the guys make their way back from Kansas City. The other thing that really hit you last night, and I know you saw this at the field level, and you got to love this as a tight end, but Travis Kelce, there was that one big play, right, the 30-plus yarder where he's not even in the route. He's back there helping out with protection, and then the play extends, and he'll just leak out and be wide open and, run upfield for a big play. I mean, those two guys, it's like they have telepathy with one another right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think I just saw a statistic, or Jason got a statistic for us. It was like 80 or 78% of his yards were on off-schedule plays. And it just speaks to, like, what they're good at. Even the touchdown is, like, semi-off schedule. Like, he's running a kind of a hitch or, like, a comeback in the end zone. The play gets dragged out a little bit. Patrick Mahomes flushes out to the right. He throws the ball back across his body, and Travis Kelce's there magically with great leverage on the DV for a completed ball. So I don't know, man. Like watching the film leading up again. Like that was one of the things that just jumped out at you in terms of what made this offense dangerous. Is like there was clips that we looked at in our film review show where it's like there's free runners to the quarterback, and it doesn't really matter because he and Travis are just on the same page. And so like when you've played that much football together, when you have that relationship with the quarterback, like that's the result is it gets you out of stuff, right? Like that's what the continuity of an offensive personnel gives you is you get these relationships built. Like I think about Peyton Manning's a great example when he was in Indianapolis with those great receivers, Marvin Harrison Jr., Reggie Wade. Like he could throw to those guys in the dark because of the reps they'd bang together. And you see that here with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. So again, like, I know fans are probably freaking out today and they want to be critical of the defense, but there is a little bit of like, man, Kansas City's just a very good football team, and these offensive relationships are so important.
It is part of Tell the Truth Tuesday here on the Booth Review podcast. Injuries are part of the story with this team, right? Terry McLaurin has to leave the game. Javon Kinlaw, although he said he could have come back, had to leave the game. Laremy Tunsil left the game last night. Of course, you came in with various injuries. Obviously, no Jaden Daniels. You hear it a lot in football, more so than other sports. People say, look, injuries are not an excuse. Next man up. But that's just not real. I mean, it's not real. Your ones are your ones for a reason. At some point, there is this battle of attrition. I kind of feel like this team is like at that point where it's hard to kind of find the solutions. How do you look at it, though, as a guy that watches all this film? I mean, is there enough depth that they can be competitive and win games moving forward, even if this is maybe going to be the reality where they're going to be missing people, throughout the different stretches of the season?
Yeah, I do think they can win football games. It's just going to be hard, And I made this joke with B. Mitch and JP last night and this morning when I was doing their show, and it's like, there's a reason Jordan Reed was the starting third down pass catching tight end when I was on the team. It's because old Logan Paulsen out there with the neck roll and the mouth guard and the big face mask isn't catching the football the same way. And so there's a distinct drop-off between the two people. And I think there's a reason that Terry and Debo are making all this money. It's because of their ability to affect defenses, right? Their ability to win versus man-to-man coverage, make explosive plays down the field, make plays that are unusual, and that's what dictates them getting that compensation from the team. And so when those guys aren't playing, when Laremy Tunsil's not playing, who's a top 5 player at his position, like, you're going to feel the drop off to the next player. Like, Brandon Coleman played great in this game when he was playing, but it's a difference. It's a different caliber of player. And I think that's not a knock on the guys backing up. It's just that's what makes those other guys special. That's what makes them the 0.01% of the NFL. And so, yes, you can win football games, but it does challenge you. And I think we're going to talk about it more when we get to the problems and solutions segment. But the level of detail when you lose those explosive playmakers just has to tick up a notch. And that's hard. That's coaching. That's players. That's everybody walking and pulling in the same direction and saying, like, we cannot have a penalty on an illegal contact down the field. We cannot muff a kick. There's just the margin for error for us as we lose those playmakers just gets smaller and smaller and smaller and more difficult to overcome.
Yeah, I mean, I think about, sometimes, as we've seen over this, first year plus of Jaden Daniels, how many times he solves some situations, right, where it's third and long and he somehow slips through the pocket when the pressure's on and caving and finds a way to make it to the yard marker. Like, those kind of plays, you don't probably respect them as much as you should until they're gone. And then, watching it without him this year, like, man, that's one of those plays where, Jaden just find a way sometimes. And you just, like you say, you just don't have that. And there's a reason why, he's a one of one, and you don't, it is tough, even though Marcus does a great job. It's just, you lose something.
And I think that's a great point. And that's one of the reasons I am confident they can win games, because when he is at his best, he is a special, uber talented football player. And I think back to the 4th and 15 last year that he's able to scramble for and get a first down, the numerous 4th and shorts that he was able to accrue last year, stealing possessions. Like, it probably looks different in the last game on some of those fourth down plays when he's in there, some of those 3rd and long plays when he's in there, because he does have a natural knack for elevating not just players around him, but the offense. Like, I think back to the Bears game, which is the last game that he played in, and the Bears are playing all this man coverage. I know people want to be very critical of that game because he drops the football, he throws the interception in the red zone. But when you watch the plays through and you're like, man, that's a great decision to scramble there. That's a tight window throw. And you feel him just pulling everybody along with him, dragging the offense forward. And when you don't have that again, like you said, I love that you said this. Marcus is a good player, right? But he doesn't have that special gear that some of these top flight guys do. And so I do think that when Jaden gets healthy, if there is some pieces around him that give him confidence to play, like, this could be a different thing moving forward. But again, it goes back to the initial point of the conversation, which is the injury bug is rampant on this team. And it's so hard to overcome that, but you need special performances from special players when they do get healthy, and you need to be incredibly consistent moving forward.
It is the Booth Review podcast. Scott Jackson, Logan Paulsen in for the guys as they make their way back from Kansas City. All right, let's get to the problems plus solutions as we dissect the big moments from this football game. Let's talk about the problem in the red zone this year. A 77.78 TD success rate entering Monday night, which is second in the NFL, but obviously didn't have as many opportunities or successes Monday night.
Yeah, and so I think like when I look at, and again, like Joe Witt Jr. and this defensive staff are probably well aware of this, but when I look at it and I say, like, and I talk to London Fletcher, talk to guys, Smoot, who you know very well, like one of the things that comes to the forefront for me is just like, can we get the rush to marry with the coverage? And specifically, I think as a case study, when you look at the Kansas City game, I think the coverage in the back end in the red zone was actually pretty good. But as the down gets longer, as you're pushed into these longer counts for the quarterback holding the football, man coverage gets stretched, zone coverages get stretched. And so what I would say is, like, I know we're really banged up on the defensive line. No Dietrich Wise, no Dorrance Armstrong. Frankie Louvu's playing defensive end for us, which was not in the card, not on my bingo card at the start of the year, right? But can we get a 4-5 man rush? Can we bring some pressures to again allow to support the coverage, right? Because I look at this last game and it's like when the quarterback escapes the pocket because our lack of rush continuity, like that just makes it really a really hard down for the guys in the back end. And I'm sure the guys in the back end, the linebackers, the corners, the safeties would say, oh, we can hold up. We should hold up longer. But as someone who coaches high school football, as someone who's played in the NFL, like that's an unrealistic expectation. That's an inevitable breakdown. So can we get that rush to really come to life here with a little bit of pixie dust and duct tape kind of stringing this thing all together? I think that's the thing I would look for moving forward, specifically in those red zone moments. Pass rush married with the coverage to make sure that we can kind of be more efficient in those situations.
All right, another problem plus solutions. What about the big plays? We talked about a few of them earlier, but kind of those Patrick Mahomes big play moments and how to slow those things down.
Yeah, and to me, if you look looking at the Kansas City as a model, right, and you look at the rest of the year and kind of some of the issues that have plagued them, it's really, and I think Joe Witt Jr. identified this weeks ago, to his credit, right? He just said we got to play in the context of the defense. Like we got to fit runs the way we're supposed to fit them to eliminate explosive run plays, and we got to play coverages the way we're supposed to play them. And I think like when you look at last night, I tipped my hat because I felt like in the first half they came out, they fit runs the way they were supposed to fit them. I thought they did a great job in coverage. I thought they did a great job rallying and tackling. I think that's the version of the defense that Joe Witt Jr., Dan Quinn envisioned when they talk about a run and hit assignment sound team. But as we move on into the second half, right, there's a couple of big penalties. There's that illegal contact, or it was a personal foul, right, or something like that. I don't remember the exact call. But those things are, again, like when we're not as talented, when our starting horses are out because of injury, we got to tighten the hatches there, tighten the screws a little bit. So I look at some of the explosive plays, they come off schedule. We don't have eye discipline. We're in the red zone. We're trying to make a play that's really not our responsibility. And I know that's so challenging with Patrick Mahomes back there making the plays that he's making. But trust it. Trust the process. Trust your teammates. And again, I do really believe this. I look at some of those plays that he extended in the red zone. We have to be more cognizant of our rush lanes and our angles, because then it puts those guys in the back end in bad spots. So don't put the cape on. Do your job. I know that's so boring. I know fans probably want some crazy revelation, but like everyone runs cover 3. Everyone runs man coverage. Everyone has a 4-man rush. Everyone has 5-man pressures. It comes down to how you execute them and how the guys can own their assignment. I really genuinely believe that like if they can get to that level of execution that Dan Quinn and Joe Witt are aspiring to, they're going to be okay.
All right. Mental errors, certainly popped up in this football game, throughout, the lack of what you would call complementary football, right? Yeah. Like you'd offensive or defensive make a play, then the offense wouldn't come through, or the special teams would have an issue. How do you kind of look at those plays throughout this game?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a great answer. I think about the sack that is given up where like, Cosme's sliding down, Connerly's sliding out. There's the chip help. It looks like there's a miscommunication there because to me, that's a 4-man rush. We got the offensive slide going to the left. Cosme looks like he should be pushing right with Connerly to block that wide 4-eye/3 technique there. And, we're in a 6-man pro, backs in the backfield. We don't need to be doing anything crazy there, but for whatever reason, there's a miscommunication, there's a misidentification. And the only way I know how to fix that as a former player is to say, hey, how can I be more accountable to those looks that are going to be challenging, that are going to test our rules and those protections? So as a player, how can I study more film, ask more questions to make sure that I'm ready to go for those moments? And as a coach, I think it's the same thing, but in reverse. It's like, how do I make sure that I get all this information to the players so they can execute at a high level? And I know we've got the right people in the building to get that done, but it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of critical self-evaluation, which is sometimes uncomfortable and sometimes not fun. But I think it's going to be incredibly, incredibly important moving forward. Because again, like that's a small example. There's some eye discipline stuff in man coverage. There's some bunch looks, which I thought on the whole they handled well, but there's a couple where they get a little bit loose, And for some of these young football players on the defensive side of the ball, who like McGee and Tyler Owens, who I thought did some really good things, like can we enhance our communication? Can we enhance how we're seeing the entire picture as opposed to just our assignment? Again, that all comes down to reps, study, walkthrough, deliberate practice, and that stuff Dan's been preaching for the last 2-3 weeks, and I think you're seeing it improve. It looks like it's going to take some time, because I think it's important to remember, like the Cosmi one, I think is a great example. Like Cosmi is a deliberate, smart, tough football player, but he missed all of training camp because of the injury, right? So he's coming back, and now you have to kind of accelerate his learning process.
Yeah, do you think any of that too? I mean, obviously him and Connerly are new to one another, right? I mean, because Josh has been playing with a different tackle or different guard, this whole time. I mean, is there a little bit of like chemistry that has to develop between these two players as they are now heading into will be game 3 with each other?
Yeah, I think that's a huge part. Like I always think about it as a tight end playing with different tackles, right? Because you get a relationship built with that tackle, and you have a communication style developed with them, and you understand on this combination, he's going to fit it like this as opposed to this guy. And those bank reps are just extremely important to building that chemistry and cohesion. And again, like I think you bring up a great point. Connerly's a young player. Cosmi's coming off an injury. This was his second game back. And again, there is going to be a little bit of a learning curve. And again, I think everyone always kind of pushes the physical learning to the forefront of those conversations, but they forget about the mental element of football. That's what it makes it such a beautiful game. It's this rigorous physical demand, but also the mental demands, especially of a position like offensive line.
Yeah, and then you mentioned some of the coverage things. I mean, there's a lot of new personnel running out there last night, right? There's more Tyler Owens than we've seen before. Obviously, Savage is still relatively new. You saw a lot of McGee last night. But are those the kind of the things that they can fix and these guys be part of the solutions as they move forward the remainder of the year?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I was really impressed with how Tyler Owens played man-to-man coverage versus a Hall of Fame tight end. Like he's a relatively young player, and I thought he did a good job. I think you feel McGee in a way that is fun. Like he's fast, he's physical, he's relentless. You can tell he gets a lot of joy from playing. He's the type of player you enjoy watching. But again, like sometimes you get a novel front spacing or a novel run fit, and it's like, am I in the right spot, or is this the coverage I'm supposed to take? And on the whole, I thought he did a decent job. I know PFF kind of burned him a little bit in terms of grade, but like when you go back and watch, like overall, I think this is a very positive performance for a guy who's got the most snaps since he's been here. And I think hats off to Joe Witt Jr. for pushing them into the lineup and giving those guys those opportunities. And so I think that was another fun thing that I got to give a tip of a hat to Joe Witt Jr., especially in that first half, is let's make sure guys are in roles that they're comfortable with and we can maximize. And I thought he did a great job of that.
I got a kind of off the board problems plus solutions question for you. Getting the running backs going again. It feels like lately that has been a bit of a problem. Certainly, again, when Jaden's out there, that dictates a little bit more and those type of things. But what can they do just to get the running backs, no matter who the quarterback is, to kind of get more more production and more pop?
Yeah, to me, it's about the blocking surface, and we talked about it with Pass Pro with Cosmi and Connerly and some of these new pieces. But there is, I think, a huge element. Like when I was a part of the number one rushing offense in the NFL when Robert Griffin III was here in 2012, that wasn't something that we just casually did. That was who we were. That was like a dyed-in-the-wool thing. We focused on it. We used to do our install for team run, not as like an offensive line, tight end, running back. It was everybody on the offense was in the practice squad guys were in the room with us as we did our run installs. So everyone knew exactly the look we were supposed to be getting and knew exactly the expectation for everybody in the offense when it came to running the football. And so I think of like, when you want to get good at running the football, you have to pour a ton of time into it. And I do think that, like, talk about the injuries, like think about the direction that this offense has had to shift. Like coming into the season, I was like, we're going to run the football, but we're going to run it out of 11, right? We're going to have Noah Brown, Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, and we'll be able to run from light box structures and all of a sudden, it's changed pretty dramatically. Now we're going to be a 12 personnel running the football team, right? That changes box count numbers. That changes fronts. That changes our trajectory on double teams. All those things are affected because of the injuries to the secondary. So to me, in terms of getting it going, again, this is boring to fans, I know, but like it's time on task. We have to spend more time on task. And again, like I got to give credit to Kansas City, like leading up to the game, that was one of the most well-coached fronts that I'd seen in a long time. Steve Spagnuolo had those guys locked in. Those 3 linebackers are so fun to watch. Their safeties know how to fit runs. And there's not, like, talk about not putting on capes. Those guys never put on a cape. It's like we are in our gap at the right moment, coming downhill. And so you got to give them a lot of credit. But I do think that the more time, the more equity they can put in, the Commanders, to the run stuff specifically, it's going to really benefit them long term.
We're here with Logan Paulsen, Booth Review, talking about problems and solutions. One of the things that was interesting wrinkle that we saw last night, Logan, I want to ask you about was, what did you think of seeing, John Bates, Ben Sinnott get into the passing game? We see them block a lot. It has to do with the blocking front, but both last night, had some opportunities and made some plays catching the football.
Yeah, I think it's great, man. I think I really especially love the John Bates completion because I think that's something that he brings that is so undervalued by the league, is that he's a big, long, strong, physical dude. For my money, I've said this multiple times, maybe the best blocking tight end in the NFL. Like, he does an excellent job. But having a guy that can also stress the seam, get down the field a little bit, he's not going to run the route tree Zach Ertz is, but it makes that package so much more dynamic. Like, think about when you bring an extra offensive lineman in, you lose that eligible receiver in the pass game, right? They can green dog that player. Green dog meaning if it's man coverage, I can just blitz the second that the extra tackle blocks, right? And Bates prevents you from doing that. So I love the little counter pass, play action, half roll, move the pocket. It's just a great call, really well-designed play. And you've got a guy in Bates who can execute it. And again, Sinnott is getting like a little bit of a check down, kind of similar to like Travis Kelce's long completion. But I think you see the athlete. And so are there ways we can exploit and develop his athleticism more in this offense, especially as the playmakers are a little bit banged up? I hope so. And maybe it's not taking shots down the field, but maybe here's a screen, here's a touch from the backfield. I don't know, something like that where, again, he is an explosive athlete based on RAS score out of the combine. So let's find ways to maybe get him involved. Doesn't need to be 5-10 targets a game, but maybe it's 2 to 4. And does that give you enough offensive firepower that teams can't just kind of put the cap on your ceiling offensively? Maybe. And so that's something that I think is a nice wrinkle to see against Kansas City.
Well, obviously, Seattle brings different challenges than the Chiefs do. The good news is there's no more Patrick Mahomes on the schedule the rest of the way, Logan.
Scott, that's exactly right. No more Patrick Mahomes and on to Seattle. And I think no one better to talk about that than London Fletcher, who he's got his flight. He's in D.C. He's going to come in and talk to you, to us, the audience, about how best to get after the Seattle Seahawks on Sunday night. So there's nobody better to tell us how to do it than a guy who's going to be in the Hall of Fame, and that's London Fletcher.
All right, thanks, Scott, for filling in as I was navigating my travel situation back from Kansas City. Fellas, just my overall thoughts on the game. I thought being on the field, and I shared this with you, Logan, I thought the team came out with great energy. Like, I'm on the sidelines just watching those guys coming out. I'm like, okay, these guys didn't come here to just kind of be all with Arrowhead Stadium and be all of Patrick Mahomes and look at their Super Bowl banners and all that. These guys came to win a football game. And then the way the game started off, man, offense just rolling, moving the football down the field. Obviously, you got the unfortunate interception that bounced off the pads of Deebo Samuel. And I felt like he was just trying to make a play, trying to turn his head and see what he can do before he really looked the football in. defense, they came out. You can see the improvements of the defense. You can see the difference in their play. I thought putting Jordan McGee on the field, he played an outstanding game. You felt his speed. Tyler Owens, you felt his speed, his presence on the game. It wasn't perfect at all the time, but I thought defensively the guys did enough, especially in that first half, getting 2 takeaways, 2 interceptions off of Patrick Mahomes, who came into the game with 14 touchdowns and 2 interceptions on this season. And so for us to get 2 in the first 2 drives, I'm like, okay, man, maybe the ball is bouncing our way, but you got to finish those drives off from an offensive standpoint with points, touchdowns, and especially going against the Chiefs in Arrowhead. Thought we got a bad spot on that Zach Ertz 4th down play. I understand the aggressiveness by DQ, and because you're not going to beat the Chiefs kicking field goal, but I thought that was a bad spot, and had a couple more opportunities, especially early in that first half, where we just didn't capitalize on the field position, the turnovers, and you end up in a 7-7 game at halftime as opposed to a lead. Maybe it's a 10-point lead, maybe it's a 14-point lead, but second half, we just couldn't get it done. Didn't have the same type of success moving the football, and defensively, Patrick Mahomes made some plays against us, extending plays, but also felt like we gave them a couple plays by just maybe not staying with receivers like we should have, as long as we should have, especially when he's out of the pocket and you're in man-to-man coverage. You have to make sure you stay with your man until you're for certain that he has crossed the line of scrimmage and he's no longer going to be a passer. So there were some situations and things that we can do better from a defense standpoint. But all in all, man, I was encouraged by what I saw. Looking forward to this game against the Seattle Seahawks on Sunday Night Football. So they're retiring Art Monk's jersey that night. We got the Super Bowl era jerseys. There'll be a lot of energy and excitement at our stadium on Sunday night. And I feel like, man, there's a lot to build upon from that game against the Chiefs, but also there's some things that we need to still clean up. And once we do those things, regardless of the injury situation moving forward, we will be a better football team, and feel like we got to get this game against the Seattle Seahawks on Sunday Night Football, and then we'll deal with the rest as the season may go. The leaders on this football team have to continue to reiterate that type of message that we got a lot of football left. Our season's not over. The NFC East is still kind of wide open. It's we still got 2 games against the Eagles. We got another game against the Cowboys, another game against the Giants. So we got a lot of football left in front of us. We got it, but we have to get this game at home against the Seattle Seahawks. It's an NFC game. We got to start stacking some wins against NFC opponents in case you're looking at some potential wild card situations or scenarios. But a lot of encouraging things that I saw from that ball game. Disappointed we weren't able to play better in the second half, but again, a lot that we can build on and take into this game against the Seattle Seahawks. We're retiring a number of Art Monk, one of the franchise's all-time greats. We want to be able to hear you all the way up in the booth. We need you rocking at Northwest Stadium. Can't wait to see you there. Can't wait to hear you, more importantly. And thanks for watching Booth Review.
Booth Review was filmed at the Big Bear AI Command Center studio. Big Bear AI offers mission-ready AI for a rapidly evolving world, proudly protecting the Washington Commanders and its fans.